Good day, everyone, respected classmates, and to our subject professor, Doc Isa. So it's an honor to present our report today. So we will be discussing under the Corporate Planning Project and Feasibility Study the topic Corporate Governance, the Mechanism and Agency Relationship. So we'll be focusing on the main findings and relevant details. So thank you for your attention, and we hope this presentation will be informative and engaging. So first, let's have a short review on what is a corporate governance. So this is a system by which companies are directed and controlled. So it defines the relationship among companies' management, board of directors, shareholders, and other stakeholders. So its goal is to ensure accountability, fairness, and transparency in company's relationship with all its stakeholders. So the key principles of corporate governance is first is accountability. So the corporate officers and board members are answerable for decisions and performance. Second is the transparency. So open and timely disclosure, especially the financial and operational information. Third is yung fairness. So yung be equitable treatment of shareholders including minority and foreign shareholders. Next is responsibility. So companies must comply with laws and ethical standards. Last is yung stakeholder engagement. So the recognitions of the rights and interests of all stakeholders. So let's have a example of corporate governance in our country. So we are all familiar with Ayala Corporation. So Ayala Corporation is one of the oldest and largest conglomerates in the country. So it's widely recognized for its commitment to corporate governance. So the key corporate governance practices at Ayala are yung independent board members. So Ayala maintains a board composed of significant number of independent directors, ensuring objective oversight. Next yung transparency and reporting. So they regularly publish detailed, integrated annual and sustainability reports following global standards. Next is yung kanilang stakeholder engagement. So yung they involves its stakeholders through sustainability initiatives, community engagement, and shareholder meetings. Next is yung kanilang audit and risk committee. So it has a well-established committee to manage financial integrity, internal controls, and risk management. And last, yung kanilang code of ethics. So Ayala enforces a code of conduct that promotes ethical business practices among employees and leadership. A crucial aspect of corporate governance is the relationship between the owners or the shareholders and the managers, executives, which can often involve conflicts of interest. So the relationship is called the agency relationship, and the mechanisms that help mitigate issues arising from the relationship are referred to as corporate governance mechanisms. So we're going to discuss these mechanisms further on the next slides. So, yung agency relationship arises in a corporation when yung owners or shareholders delegate decision-making authority to the agents, so we can call executives or managers, so to run the business on their behalf. So this separation of ownership and control can create potential conflict of interest known as yung agency problems. So the core of an agency problem, because some managers might not aware or may not act always in the best interest of the shareholder. So, for example, some of them are prioritizing personal perks, excessive compensation, or involving too risky projects. So, governance mechanism must be in place to align their interests. So, to apply it in the Philippine setting, so we have PLDT. So, it's a major telecommunication company in the Philippines. So, it's owned by diverse set of shareholders, including foreign investors. So, the company is run by a board and professional managers, so creating a textbook agency relationship. So ano ba yung concern ng PLDT? So during the 2022, they disclosed a major budget overrun amounting 48 billion pesos. No? So due to accounted capex or capital expenditure. So of course, it sparked investors' concern about management oversight and transparency. So ano ba yung response ng corporate governance? So the board launched an independent review and held executives accountable, showing that mechanisms like board oversight, internal audits, and shareholder communications are in place to manage agency issues. Another example is yung PAL. So they have a complex ownership and management history. So with Lucio Tan being the majority shareholders and appointing professional managers over time. So what's their conflict of interest? Agency conflict. So in the past, no, so decisions related to fleet expansion and route management were criticized for being misaligned with the shareholder interest. So contributing to operational losses and financial stability. So ano ba ginawa nila? So yung during their financial restructuring in 2021, so governance reforms were introduced, including greater financial disclosure and more transparent stakeholder communication. So another is one of the famous media corporation, which is ABS-CBN. So they are publicly listed media conglomerate. So they are run by managers who act on behalf of both institutional and public shareholders. So what agency tools are in place? So yung regular and timely disclosure via PSE or Philippine Stock Exchange. Now is active shareholder meetings where owner vote on executive pay and policies. Third is the use of independent directors to ensure decisions are not driven solely by insider interest. So mechanisms, we have some mechanisms to mitigate agency problems in the Philippines. So wrap overview, no? Because we have yung board of directors oversight. So boards are required to have independent directors to ensure objectivity. Next is disclosure requirements, especially during they should be publicly listed when they are publicly listed companies. They must disclose financials, executive compensation, and material decisions. So everyone has the idea, no? Next is kanila, sorry, executive compensation tied to performance. So to align managers goals with shareholders value. Kumbaga, if we're going to compensate them, you should be tied up with their performance, o yung tinatawag natin sa government na performance-based bonus. Lastly is yung regulatory framework, no? So we have the SEC and Bangkong Sentral ng Pilipinas to enforce corporate governance standards. Next is yung agency problem. So there are the key concern in corporate governance, especially in the Philippines, where many companies actually are either family-owned conglomerates or publicly listed firms with diverse ownerships but concentrated control. So first agency problem is yung conflict of interest. So common naman yan, ano? So under this is yung managers' goals and the shareholders' goals. So managers may pursue personal ambitions such as compensations, perks, or prestige, which may not necessarily align with the increasing shareholder value. So for our example, the famous PhilHealth controversy during 2020. No? So although it's a government-run health insurance agency and not a typical corporation, so PhilHealth faced massive scrutiny when reports revealed executives received lavish allowances and questionable reimbursements. So I guess this is just common to the government agencies, no? So despite the agency suffering massive financial leaks, so this misalignment of goals where executive benefited personally while the agency struggled. So it demonstrates an agency problem in a public sector equivalent. Next is the GMA network versus ABS-CBN governance model. So we can compare paano ba siya pinamamalakaran ng kanilang executives and the shareholders. So first, GMA has a long emphasized profitability and shareholder returns. So a relatively shareholder alignment model ang tawag doon. While ABS-CBN has occasionally been criticized for heavy family influence over management. Yan. So kasi nga siya ay more on a family-oriented conglomerate. So where decisions may be more legacy-based or influence-driven than compared to purely shareholder value-oriented. Next, yung kanilang short-term versus long-term objectives. So managers may chase quarterly profits to earn bonuses or look good to the board even if it comes at the cost of a long-term investment such as research, tech upgrades, or employee development. So another example in our country, if you're familiar with Metro Pacific Investment Corporation or MPIC headed by MVP or Manny V. Pangilinan. So it's an infrastructure investment holding company. So yung kanilang executives face constant pressure from shareholders to deliver returns in a highly regulated, capital-intensive sector. There were past discussions on how the company might cut back on long-term infrastructure plans due to public-private partnership uncertainties, so highlighting tension between the short-term returns and long-term sustainability. So yung gusto ng mga executives talaga is for on this company, the shareholders want to have high delivery returns, or capital intensive sector than investing on long term like yung infrastructure plans, kasi nga mas parang mabilisan ang turnover when it comes to partnership. Another example is yung Jollibee, so akala natin napakaganda ng business ng Jollibee. So Jollibee Food Corporation specifically had to close several foreign acquisitions, example din yung Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf and yung Smash Burger when they were underperforming. So these aggressive short-term global expansion goals created investor concerns as the company shifted focus from its strong domestic base. However, to their credit, Jollibee Food Corporation has since worked to realign its strategy for long-term value creation, balancing risk better. Third is yung risk aversion. So managers without significant ownership often avoid high risk, high reward projects. So they are preferring to maintain status quo and job security. So mas pinapriority nila actually yung kanilang trabaho than risking kasi nga they are risk averse, risking on high risk, high reward projects. So even if shareholders desire aggressive growth strategies, mas mataas kasi yung percentage na they want to keep their job for a long time. For example is yung Energy Development Corporation. So they are a company that operates in renewable energy, so this is a capital intensive risk company. So prior to its delisting from PSE, there were boardroom level debates about whether to pursue new exploratory geothermal projects in other countries. So the management hesitated due to risk of exposure, while controlling the shareholders who wanted to grow. Eventually, a strategic investor took over and delisted the firm to allow long-term risky growth without quarterly shareholder pressure. Another example is yung mga local banks lending behavior. For example, BPI and Metro Bank, under BPI and Metro Bank. So during economic uncertainties like yung nung pandemic, bank executives were more cautious than investors might have preferred in choosing to hold liquidity instead of expanding aggressive lending programs. So this risk-averse behavior was prudent from a manager's perspective, but didn't satisfy shareholders seeking dividend payouts or growth in loan portfolios. Another agency problem is yung moral hazard. So this arises when a person, in this case is the executive or the manager, is able to take risk or act irresponsibly because the cause or consequences of those actions will be borne by others, no? So iba yung iba yung sasalo nung cost or consequence. So in this case is the shareholders or the public. So in a corporate context, this often happens when a manager takes excessive risk to chase bonuses, or there is a weak oversight from the board of regulators. Managers become complacent, especially when they are in a secure or politically appointed position. So first is yung excessive risk taking. So let's have an example is yung Luna crypto scandal or financial scam. So this is happens in a local platform. So while not having a traditional corporation structure, many local investors were caught in a risky scheme or digital financial platforms where founder took excessive financial risk, claiming high returns. So without strong governance, these platforms collapse and the users bore the cost. No? Sila yung nagsuffer, not the managers. So these are though these are fringe example, they highlighted a moral hazard of unchecked financial decisions in the leadership. Another example, again, ito na naman si PhilHealth's investment decision. So it has been scrutinized by their poor investment decisions and mismanagements of funds, including unauthorized disbursement or lack of proper audit trails. Since executive knew they weren't using personal capital, and there was historically weak enforcement, this created an environment where risky or unjustified spending decisions were made with limited accountability. Next is yung managerial laziness and complacency or complacency. So when executives or managers face little or to no performance monitoring, they may slack off, leading to inefficiencies, delays, or even the decay of organization's performance. So, example natin is mga GOCC performance issues. Ito kaya pala, ngayon ko lang siya na-realize actually. So, example natin dito lang is yung NFA and LTO. No? So, some government corporations or agencies have long faced criticisms for inefficiency and lack of innovation. So this sometimes attribute to moral hazard of the executives or department heads that are protected by tenure, political backing, or lack of performance incentives. So there's a little motivation to improve the system or the services. So in the past, the NFA was criticized for delays in rice imports and poor inventory management. So repeated government bailouts means managers did not face real consequences, and so inefficiencies persisted during this time. Another is the underperforming SUCs actually. No? So while it's not a corporate, some SUCs face moral hazard problems where the presidents or the administrators remain in position without strict academic or performance evaluation. So without the pressure of the market discipline or strong accountability system, there's a risk of complacency in innovation and institutional development. So another tools to combat moral hazard. So let's have to address this moral hazard. Philippine corporation and regulators apply mechanisms such as the PBP or performance-based bonus. So bonuses and incentives is tied to long-term goals, not just short-term profits. We also have regular audits, so external and internal audits to evaluate financial decisions and efficiency. We also have stronger oversight boards where the boards are truly independent and engaged in oversight. And we also have the whistleblower protection, allowing employees to report unethical or lazy behavior without fear. We also have the regulatory enforcement. So we have yung SEC, yung COA, and Civil Service Commission for public bodies. So moral hazard remains a persistent challenge actually in our country, especially in a state-owned enterprise, family-controlled corporation, and emerging tech and finance sector. So addressing this, it requires active governance, transparency, and performance tracking, and strong legal consequences for negligence or irresponsible behavior. background or knowledge about agency problem. So let's proceed to the mechanism, no, for corporate governance. So these are tools, system, or structures that aim to minimize the agency problem and ensure that managers act in the best interest of shareholders. So this mechanism can be broadly classified into internal and external mechanisms. So I will be discussing the internal part, and the external part will be the start of the part of Sir Voltaire. So corporate governance mechanism actually are essential to reduce agency problems, of course, to ensure accountability and protect the shareholder rights. In our country, these mechanisms are supported by or both company practices and regulatory frameworks as the revised corporate governance code of the Security Exchange Commission. Under the internal mechanism, we have first the board of directors. No? So a board composition is a mix of directors, executive directors, which are the insiders, and the non-executive directors, so from the outside. So this is to ensure that the decision making is balanced and independent. So we also have independent directors who do not have a stake in the company, are particularly important in offering unbiased, that's what we call oversight. So what is the role of board of directors in corporate governance? So acting as the bridge between the shareholders and the managers. So in our country, the structure and behavior of the board are crucial in ensuring accountability, strategic direction, and risk management. So what are their roles? So first is the oversight and monitoring. So they are responsible for what? For approving strategic plans. They also are responsible for appointing, evaluating, and compensating top executives. They also monitor the financial performance and ensuring compliance with laws and ethical standards. So, for example, balik tayo kay Ayala Corporation. So, Ayala is known for its world-class governance standards, consistently receiving top marks in corporate governance surveys. So the board actively oversees its portfolio of businesses, for example, yung Globe, yung Ayala Land, and integrates sustainability and digital transformation into corporate strategy, not just profit, no? Not just for profit goals. So it shows alignment with long-term shareholders' interests. So another is the composition of the board, no? So it should be a balance of insiders and outsiders. So a well-functioning board is a mix actually of executive boards and non-executive boards or independent directors who bring outside perspective and guard against groupthink, no, or undue influence from insiders. Ito yung minsan common sa mga family or family owned business, no. So our example is in JFC or Jollibee Food Corporation. So their board composed of a mix of executive, non-executive, and independent directors. So independent directors help evaluate risks of overseas expansion or major acquisition. So for example, during the acquisition of the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, the board helped assess the strategic risk and long-term fit for the company. Another mechanism is another under internal mechanism is the separation of chairman and the CEO roles. No, so I was searching actually some companies in the Philippines, big companies in the Philippines. So sometimes parang hindi siya sometimes, most of the time when I search some famous companies, parang magkasama lagi yung chairman and CEO role. So this time we have to separate the roles of chairman who leads the board and the CEO who manages the operation, because it can lead to conflict of interest actually, and excessive concentration of power. So separating them promotes independent judgment and accountability. So ating example is yung Globe Telecom. So Globe Telecom is under Ayala Group of companies, has a long practice of role separation between the chairman and CEO. This promotes checks and balances in major strategic decisions such as network modernization, investments, or mergers with fintech companies. Another example is yung SM Investment Corporation. So their roles are also typically separated or rotated. While family members may hold both executive and board positions, the company balances this by maintaining independent directors and clear governance policies to reduce conflict. So there are uh, there are also some red flags that we shouldn't ignore when it comes to uh, uh, mechanism controlling the corporate governance. No, so when governance structure failed or not followed, it can lead to corporate scandals, inefficiency, or investors mistrust. So ayan na naman si PhilHealth during the 2020 scandal. No, so the board during this time, many of them were from the government appointees. No? So they failed to provide proper oversight over executive spending and reimbursements. Weak board composition under political influence and lack of independence voices allowed moral hazard and mismanagement to thrive. Second, internal mechanism is for executive compensation. So, many companies have adopted performance-based, yan, yung pay for performance, compensation structure to align the goals of the executives with those of shareholders. So, performance-based compensation can include the first is yung bonuses tied to long-term performance. So, some companies offer annual bonuses that are contingent upon meeting specific financial or operational targets. So, such as revenue growth, profitability, or return on equity. So, these targets are often tied to the long-term success of the company to ensure that executives are focused on sustainable growth rather than short-term gains. So, for example, a Philippine conglomerate may offer bonuses to its executive based on the increase in shareholder value over the 3-year period, motivating them to make decisions to contribute to long-term stability. Next is yung stock options. So stock options are another performance-based compensation tool used by companies in the Philippines, especially those who are listed in PSE. So, another example is yung isang retail company in our country might offer stock options to its executives that vest over several years. This encourages executives to work toward increasing the company's stock price since their financial gain is tied to the stock's performance. So, executives have a direct stake in value they created for the company, aligning their interests with those of shareholders. Another is yung equity-based incentives. So companies in the Philippines may also offer equity-based incentives such as direct stock ownership, no? So to their executives, and also by giving them a stake in the company, executive becomes more motivated to think like shareholders as they will be directly benefit from the company's growth. So, for example, under this is a tech company may grant shares to its executives based on their performance in achieving key strategic milestones like market share growth or customer acquisition targets. So, the company's stock price increases, so does the value of their shares. So next is the structure or for pay for performance. So these are designed to directly link executive compensation to company performance. So thereby encourage executives to make decisions that maximize shareholder value. So in a Philippine setting, pay for performance could include the linking of compensation to profitability metrics. Now, sa Filipino manufacturing company, for example, could design its compensation system where the bonus and salary increases of the top executives are tied to specific profitability targets, such as net income or return on assets. So this type of arrangement, of course, ensures that executives are motivated to enhance operational efficiency, to reduce costs and increase profits, all of which benefit shareholders in the form of higher dividends or stock prices. Another is stock yung stock price as a performance metric. So especially those listed on PSE directly link compensation the company's stock prices. So for example, an executive bonus could be contingent upon the company's stock price outperforming the market or specific industry benchmark over a defined period. So this approach motivates executives to focus on increasing market value, improving investor sentiment, and driving long-term growth. Another is the KPIs tied to shareholder value. So many companies is now integrated KPIs such as shareholder returns, earning per shares, and return on equity. So into the executive compensation structure. So for example, a bank may offer bonuses or stock options based on how well it's performed in terms of profitability, asset growth, and overall return on equity. So this ensures the management is incentivized to create value for shareholders. So to put it in a Philippine setting, so an example is a Philippine conglomerate. So hypothetically, with business spanning retail, real estate, and infrastructure, the company may offer its executive a combination of the following example kanina. So first is a base salary. So the executive receives competitive base salary, but a significant portion of their total compensation is based on the performance metrics that align with the company's overall goals or increasing shareholder value. Next is yung annual bonus. So this linked to short-term performance targets such as achieving revenue growth in a retail segment or hitting profit targets for real estate division. The performance targets are clearly communicated and based on financial metrics that directly affect the shareholder wealth. Next is yung stock option. So in years, in addition to the bonuses, a company may offer stock option that vests over the period of 5 years. So this exercise price for this option is set at the market value of the stock at the time of grant, encouraging the executive to work towards increasing the stock price to gain from their option. Next is yung LTIPS or long-term incentive plan. So yung company may also establish LTIP where executives are rewarded for achieving strategic long-term goals such as market expansion, sustainability goals, or operational cost reducing that are expected to have a positive impact on the company's long-term financial health. Third, under internal mechanism is internal controls and audit committees. So they play crucial role in ensuring that companies are operating efficiently, ethically, and in compliance with local and international regulations. So this is particularly important in the Philippines where businesses face both domestic regulatory requirements such as the SEC and global standards or yung such as IFRS. So first is yung effective internal control. So these are sets of procedures, policies, and systems implemented by a company to ensure the integrity of financial and accounting information. So to prevent fraud, safeguard assets, and ensure compliance with laws and regulations. So these controls are essential in maintaining the accuracy, legal compliance, and transparency of financial reporting, which ultimately impacts investors' confidence, company reputation, and shareholder value. So why internal controls are important in our country? So the Philippines has a robust regulatory framework governing corporate practices, including financial reporting. So for example, yung Philippine SEC at yung BSP. So they impose regulation that requires companies to maintain proper internal controls to prevent fraud and ensure financial accuracy. Companies that fail to implement effective controls may face penalties or loss of investor confidence. So consider a large Philippine retail company. So which has many outlets across the country. So this company might implement internal controls such as segregation of duties. So the company ensures that no single individual has control over both recording and approving financial transactions. So another is approval processes. So every purchase, investment, or significant expenditure requires approval from the senior management. Next is yung reconciliation and audit. So the company performs regular reconciliations of bank statements, ledgers, and other financial records. Next is yung IT control. So given the increased reliance on digital system, the retail company might have IT controls in place to prevent unauthorized access to financial system and ensure that transactions are recorded accurately. Secondly, under internal controls and audit committees, yung audit committees. So it's a subcommittee on the board of directors that is typically responsible for overseeing a company's internal control system and the external audit process. The primarily role of the audit committee is to ensure that companies' financial statements are accurate and comply with the applicable laws and standards, thereby maintaining the integrity of financial reporting and safeguarding the interests of the shareholders. So, ano ba yung mga audit committee na to? So, in our country, the SEC mandates that listed companies have an audit committee composed of independent directors. These requirements ensure that the audit committee operates without conflict of interest, providing an additional layer of oversight. No? So, parang just recently about this report ko lang siya na-realize na why there is a audit committee actually, even the smallest organization within a company, hindi hiwalay pa yung sa as a whole company. So they are responsible actually on overseeing internal controls, no, engaging over and overseeing external auditors, and also reviewing financial statements, and should be in compliance with the laws and regulations. So those are their responsibility. Next is you ensuring transparency and legal compliance. So internal controls and audit committees in the Philippines actually is setting also they also ensure that companies comply with the transparency and legal requirements. So yung SEC requires publicly listed companies to submit periodic financial statements undergo external audits and comply with the corporate governance guidelines. So companies that fail to adhere to these requirements can face penalties, fines, or even delisting from the stock exchange. So for instance, a large Philippine manufacturing firm listed on PSE may be required to publicly disclose financial statements in accordance with the financial reporting standards. So the company has weak internal controls and lacks a strong audit committee. It could face issues like financial statements, investor distrust, financial restatements, investor distrust, and regulatory penalties. So, however, a robust internal control system along with effective audit committee will ensure compliance with these standards, helping the company maintain investor confidence and avoid legal issues. Last internal mechanism is the shareholder rights and influence. So under this, we have the voting rights and influence of the shareholder. So shareholders exercise their rights through voting mechanisms so that allow them to influence key decisions regarding to the governance of the company. So these rights are enshrined in the Corporation Code of the Philippines, which gives the shareholders the authority to vote on significant corporate matters such as election of board members, approving mergers, and decision on executive compensation. So what are the key areas? Again, this is the key areas where shareholder votes matter. No? So sa election on board members, shareholders have the right to vote for the members of the company's board of directors. So this is one of the most fundamental governance rights that shareholders possess, as the board is responsible for overseeing the management, making key decisions, and protecting shareholders' interests. Next is the approval of mergers and acquisition. So mergers, acquisition, or major structural changes in a company must typically be approved by shareholders. A shareholder vote is required to ensure that the transaction is in the best interest of the company. Third is yung executive compensation packages. So, shareholders often have the right to approve or disapprove executive compensation packages, particularly in publicly listed companies. In SEC, requires the compensation of the key executives must be disclosed and approved by the shareholders to ensure that it is aligned with the company's performance and shareholders' value. Since in addition to their voting rights, shareholder activism has gained prominence in the Philippine market as a way for investors to influence corporate governance and address potential agency problem. So shareholder activism refers to the efforts by investors, especially institutional ones, to push changes in the company's management or corporate strategy if they believe that the management is not acting the best interest of the shareholders. So activist investors typically use a range of tools including shareholder proposal, public campaigns, or threats of voting against the management decisions to bring about change. So how does shareholder activism works in our country? So shareholder activism is an important mechanism in corporate governance landscape. So because it helps address agency problems, particularly when there is a divergence between management actions and shareholder interests. So activist investors such as institutional investors, pension funds, and hedge funds may use their influence to demand changes when they feel the management is not acting in their shareholders' best interest. So a well-known example of shareholder activism just happened recently is occurred in SM Investment Corporation. So it is a of course we all do know SM now. So a group of institutional investors became concerned that the company's strategic direction was not fully maximizing shareholders' value. So these investors believed that the management was overly focused on expanding in non-core areas such as real estate, while the core retail business was not receiving enough attention. So the activist investors used their voting powers to request for a special meeting with the management and push a reassessment of the conglomerate's investment strategy. They advocated for a company to refocus its efforts on retail, its most profitable business unit, and divest from certain non-core operations. So additionally, activist investors might have proposed changes to the company's board composition, arguing that the current board was too aligned with management and not sufficiently independent to challenge a strategic decision. So through shareholder proposals and strategic voting, these investors work to increase board independence and shift the company's strategic focus. So another instance could involve an activist investor pushing for the disclosure of executive compensation. So it's in a more transparent matter. So for example, if an executive is publicly listed of a publicly listed company are receiving high bonuses despite poor financial performance, institutional investor may raise concerns. So they could demand that the board reevaluate compensation packages to better reflect company's performance, or they might push for management changes if the situation does not improve. Okay, so that's the end of my part. So the next slide will be discussed by Sir